Okay.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Myrna Young, and today I am speaking to Pamela Benner, author of To Touch One Heart, Part 1. And Pamela and I are going to be talking on the topic, how to touch your heart. Welcome, Pamela.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to highlight and showcase your story. Awesome. All right. So let me give you guys a brief introduction. As we all know, life doesn't move in a straight line, it weaves. So, my guest today, Pamela Benner, understands this deeply. In her book, To Touch One Heart, Part 1, she shares her testimony of trauma, loss, faith, and healing, likening life to a tapestry woven with both beautiful and painful threads. What once felt like chaos became evidence of the master weaver at work. This is a conversation about transparency, redemption, and trusting God when design isn't clear. So let's dive in. There's a saying that says, we make plans, but God makes other plans, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, we never understand the master weaver. I've never heard him called that, but it's a beautiful way to understand life. So, Pamela, as we start off, your book is deeply personal and beautifully symbolic. But before we dive in, tell us what is to touch one heart. What did it mean to you to write it?
Well, it meant to go back from the beginning of my life and to revisit those moments where that were the most painful for me and understanding how they all connected with one dot to the next dot. That there was a true meaning, almost like it was connected before it ever even happened in my life, even though it was maybe trauma or disappointment or different things that came into the picture. But basically, it was for my good in the end. As long as I continued to be determined to do the work that I needed to do within myself, then I had a knowing that it would be okay. And I'm a big believer in renewing the mind. And that was the really turning point in my life because I had lost that part of me through the trauma and through all of the things that I experienced. And when I had that moment of uh, where my mind actually did snap to some point, that I had to go through the healing process where my mind was rewired. And it had to start with a blank piece of paper, so to speak. It couldn't it couldn't carry all the past baggage and the things that hurt me the most. It had to be a true healing of my mind
Mm,
in a positive way. And it took away a lot of the negativity and a lot of the bitterness, a lot of the hurt, and I was able to truly forgive myself and forgive others. And in order for me to write this book, that was part of the forgiveness. Even though I had actually forgiven through those times, I had to clean the slate, so to speak. There couldn't be anything left in my um, understanding of it all that I was going to hold anything against anyone. I had to forgive everybody.
yeah,
So,
well, that's important, and I'm glad that you actually included yourself because a lot of people say that, all right, I'm going to forgive others, but sometimes we think that we blame ourselves for a lot of things, and we've got to learn to forgive ourselves. But yeah, as you were talking, what came to mind, and then you said it, was that the Bible says that everything works out for a good. And in my life, I have seen that too. And now I've become to expect it. And There's one time my pastor told us to write something that's called a book of wars. And I've got my book of wars. And in my book of wars, I list all those challenges and all those things that I thought were bad for me that ended up being good for me. Right.
Yes,
So you're talking about the same
absolutely.
thing, about the tapestry. And yeah, some people don't understand that you've got to go through the pain, right? Or the
Yes,
suffering
yes,
in
yes,
order
yes.
in
It's
order
the
to get,
pain that heals you.
yes, in order to get to the other side. So, great intro. So, when did you first realize your life wasn't random threads, but a tapestry in the making? And maybe you can tell us, a couple of the right here. Maybe you can tell us a couple of the trauma or a couple of the things that you had to forgive people for.
Um, I think for myself, it was the most painful things, such as relationships that didn't go well, and things that were hidden. My mom was a person of secrets, and a lot of betrayal with especially women in my life. I actually thought that I held all my anger and bitterness towards men, but I found out through the process that it was really towards women.
Wow.
And
What a
you,
revelation. Wow.
yeah, so there was a lot of moments of revelation about it through the healing process. That's the part that I want people to understand, because that is the true understanding of who you are. Like, I brought myself back to myself through all of the healing, the original person that I was meant to be, through that. And most importantly was to love myself,
Yeah.
because I never learned to love myself,
Mm.
through all of that I had experienced. So to me, that was very important. And
So when did this all come together for you? What was the fire? I wouldn't don't want to say the fire starter. What was the trigger or the catalyst?
to write the book.
No,
Okay.
that you understood that everything had meaning and there was tapestry in the making. That was the question.
When I started writing the book, actually,
Really?
and putting things together in a order that it happened, because that was the tapestry of putting everything from the beginning of my life to the end of my parents' life, because God in his goodness actually used my parents to facilitate my complete healing. And I never knew that until after the fact, until after they had passed on. So I didn't know it when I first arrived at their home after 20 years, when they let me back in, because I was pretty much homeless at that point.
Mm.
So it kind of didn't really give me the understanding till after I went through certain things. And then I was given the understanding and the revelation of how it all fit. But and it was God's design. It wasn't something that I said, "Oh, well, I'm gonna set out to do this and have this result." I would have never in a million years would have been able to figure out how the ending was gonna end up.
Of course not.
And that's the good part of the book, because I actually got to I'm actually getting to share that with people. That is like such an intimate, there are so many intimate things in the book that were meant for evil, and God turned it around for good.
That's in the
And
Bible.
I basically had to reside on the fact that this was just my truth. This was what what had happened to me, regardless of however anyone wanted to judge me from this point on. I had to be strong in myself. And that was another aspect of doing all this, was to be the strong person that I was originally supposed to be.
All right. So, what helped you see the meaning in moments that were once felt broken or pointless? So, you just said that when you started putting together the book, You recognize that the things that were meant for evil, the Bible says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." So, when did you see the meaning in the moments that once felt broken or pointless? Now, you just said that when you were putting together the book, that's when the tapestry happened. But there must have been other moments before you started writing the book that made you want to write the book, that you saw that there is some benefit to your story.
Yeah, I had started writing years before that when I first entered my parents' home. I wrote a series of 12 books. And I had no understanding of why I was writing them at the time. I was just doing it as something that was a faithful thing. And it was just my expression of what was happening at that time of my life. And it was actually those books actually healed me emotionally and in other ways that I wasn't even aware of at the time. I wrote for 12 years and I finished the books and everything, but I was putting everything on the shelf at that point. I had given them all away. I didn't do anything to actually promote them, and I just put it up on the shelf and said I was done. I didn't want to write any more books until this presented itself a few years later. I had struggled for 10 years to write this book because I didn't want to put my experiences out there in such a raw way that because I had struggled with rejection through all of this. That was my biggest hurdle. So I didn't want to put myself there anymore. But in the meantime, once I agreed to do it, that was like a solid thing for me to be able to stand strong and to allow it to go forth and for people to read it and not to be concerned about what they thought of me or any of that stuff that was in the past. I just wanted to help somebody. I just wanted them to identify with just one word on the paper, if that's what it took to write the whole book. I just wanted people to identify with those moments in life when they think there isn't any answer, you know, and I wanted to just be able to give them the assurance that God is a healer and he can take the littlest thing and he can heal that to such a degree that we couldn't even understand it. And that's kind of what my experience has been. It wasn't like a big, you know, uh, moment in any of this. It was just a trust and a relationship with him. And that's what drew me all those years to get to this point where I was free to be who I was supposed to be from the time I was born. Because through all that trauma and all the situations, you just kind of bury yourself. And I see people even now, they're just buried in all of their losses, all their heartbreaks, and they don't know how to get out of it. And
Well, yeah, it's listen, their childhood trauma. In fact, my theme for this month is the effects of childhood trauma. And then hey, you just came onto the theme. But I think we got to back up because someone that's listening is not going to understand. We're circling around. So maybe it's time for you to share, parts of your story. So what exactly are you talking about? I mean, I'm getting that their parents were somewhere involved in there. So what is your story?
well, basically, I started at a very young age when I first went to school, and I'm gonna just give you kind of a short version of everything.
Of course.
And
Everybody wants the long version, they get the book. But yeah, we got to set the table because nobody knows what we're talking about.
so I start from the beginning when I was a child, and I was raised in a family that were very, especially my mother was a very religious person. She was raised Catholic. My dad wasn't. He didn't have any real care in the world about religion. So basically, things began at a very young age of my mother wanting to uh, place her beliefs on us as a family, which is normal, but to the point where um, things got very complicated with that. As a child, you don't understand a lot in terms of beliefs and belief systems. But I went through Catholic school, I went through regular school, um, and I was breaking away. I was, people saw me as being rebellious, but I wasn't rebellious. I was trying to break away, even at a young age, from the religion that my mom wanted me to adhere to. And as time went on, I had two other sisters. I had two older sisters that were her most precious, things because I was the last child in the family. So I was left to my dad. They wanted a boy instead of a girl. And that's where the rejection came in. So as time went on, she had less and less time for me and things in life just happened. She wanted more time with my father, and she was very insecure herself. And as a young person, even as an adult, I never knew my mom was that insecure. But her insecurities and her fears and her doubts became mine. She made me have that same faith. She just put that stuff on me, and that was really the hard part because I went through situations that there was nobody there for me, at a young age, I was sexually molested, and then it went on to, things within a school situation with a teacher that went on for many, many years, and it was always a sexual relationship with these people, and that was the part that was destroying me because I wasn't strong. I was doing what my mother wanted me to do, and I had to be like my sister. Everything was the rule of competition, the rule of, you gotta do what she does, but I couldn't have my own identity. And I lost myself in all that hurt and all that pain. And there was nobody there to defend me or to say, I'm going to protect you. I'm not going to let this happen. But it didn't work that way. Everybody closed their eyes to it all. And that was the deepest pain when there is nobody but me. And I had to still carry what I felt was deep down within me to be truth about myself. And there was just a very little bit there that was left of me. And then I tried to actually work those things out by getting married and having children. But the pain and the woundedness just got bigger and bigger and bigger until the whole thing just blew up.
Mm.
And then that's when I started to do all the writing that I was doing because that was my therapy.
I was just
I
about
healed
to say
I
that.
healed
Yeah,
myself.
it's like a journal, right? You
Yeah,
journal it out,
I
right?
healed myself
Right.
through all those years of writing. I mean, I wrote every day, every moment that I had.
Okay.
And I went to all the church services, did all the church stuff, hooped and hollered and screamed. But none of that really did the healing for me. It was in the writing that it healed me. And I didn't even know it until years later that that had actually taken place. And
But
then
you said something earlier about not being in your parents' house for 20 years. So at some point in time, you left home?
yeah. So no, I was pretty much I had gone to art school and that was when I had the nervous breakdown and basically my mind was shot. I had lost the business and I had lost my kids. I hadn't seen my kids in 5 years. I
Mm.
wasn't allowed to see them because my ex told me if I left to go to art school that you would see your kids until they were of age.
Mm.
And I made the choice to go to art school. And that's when my brain started reconnecting and I was doing the things that made me who I was. I had to search through the darkness and through the rubble. And then it was just a process of time. And then after about 2 years of that, I didn't want to go to school anymore. I wanted to go back and try to reunite with my children. And I took the trip and it didn't work well. And I was there for about a month and I wasn't allowed to see them. And so I took a train back to Florida and I didn't want to go to my parents' house. That's why ran back home. I didn't want to face them and I didn't have any real choice to because I had nothing. I just, you know, so I entered through their door and I had to relive that so-called childhood. The very similar things that had happened, the way I was raised were very similar. They didn't change their ways in 20 years. If you're going to live here, you're going to work. If all the rules came back and they weren't very happy with it because they were in a retirement mode of things. So once I got back there, my manager actually, because I worked for a retail company, my dad had got me a job, and she was the one that helped me to start writing and to actually um, believe in myself and believe in a vision that I would write these books because I was already promised them. And I had no idea how I was going to write them. I didn't have a computer, didn't have any knowledge of how to write a book. And so she helped me, uh, and I helped her.
All right.
And
Well, that's a great story, and it's got a lot of pieces to it, and I'm glad that you kept your faith because you started off by saying that your mom had the faith and you were forced into it. But it sounds from what I'm speaking to you, you're talking about God and its purpose and weapons formed against you, so you kept your faith. So that's good. Sometimes, yeah, we rebel when we're kids, but then we grow older and we recognize it, or, we don't rebel as kids, we rebel when we were older. Um, but you also talked about the passing of your parents changed the way you understood God and yourself. Is that when this happened?
um, you mean as far as me entering back into their home? Is
No, into religion again.
oh. Um, what I did was once I started writing the books, the series of books, I was expressing my faith to my parents. I was living my faith for myself then, and I was sharing my faith with them. And that's the important part of the book because that was the true healing for me to be who I was and to not have to be anything but myself during those 20 years that I lived with them because I lived with them and took care of them until they passed on. And they saw everything that I was about because I couldn't really hide it, although I did stay in a room and wrote most of the time anyway, but they knew exactly who I was. And I got to know them as people. I didn't get to know them as my parents anymore. I got to know them as people. And the important thing was is that I began to love them for the people they were. And I wasn't capable of loving people
Oh, wow.
before that. And that was really the miracle of it all because
Wow.
it was something I never expected to happen that way. That is the glory of the book because the ending is always better than the beginning,
Of course.
you know?
That's if you have
So
progress, right?
yeah.
If you don't have progress, then it's not gonna happen that way. But it sounds like you progress through all your pain. And you know, one of the questions I have here is how did faith help you reinterpret your pain instead of being defined by it? So when you went back into started writing and you connected your spirituality, how did you interpret the pain instead of being defined by it? What was your bumper sticker?
Um I think I redefined it as a relationship and not religion. And it was personal. It was just a connection that I wasn't alone and I wasn't doing this for myself. There was a greatness in it all. There was something that I didn't experience at any other time prior to that. You know, it was more of a desire to not let go because you even in our faith we grow in process of it all, but you have to come to a point where you are complete in yourself. There's nothing broken, nothing lacking, nothing missing. And that
Well,
was
that's very
the
good.
wholeness.
Yeah, that's really good to realize because it's true,
Yeah.
right?
And this is like the inner work. It was more of the inner work than the outer work because people are afraid.
They are, right?
Yeah, people are afraid to look within themselves.
Right. Yeah, they don't want to. They don't. They're afraid to see what they're going to see. Right. So you did all this yourself without therapy.
Yeah,
Just the
yeah,
writing helped you.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's
this.
good.
I mean, I talk to people all the time, and I say, you know, you should write your story because it will heal you. And people don't think, you know, they really don't want to because it's too much.
Right. Yeah.
And I was willing to go that route, you know, and it wasn't until arrived at my parents' home that I actually agreed. I mean, I never even thought about it, to be honest with you. I thought I had gone through so much already that I didn't need any more healing, you know? But I had to agree to write this book for the because God was healing my life. He wasn't just healing me anymore. He
Right.
was healing my life. And I had to take that step to do it.
Okay. So yeah, that's amazing. All right. So how can listeners connect with you and pick up a copy of your book?
They can go to my website, which is PamelaBenner.com. They can go to Barnes and Noble. They can do Amazon.
Awesome. Do you have any social media handles or links?
As of right now, no, the publishers are working on all that, and I will be doing a book signing, hopefully by April in New York City at the Barnes and Noble there.
Okay.
Might will be
New
my
York
first
City.
signing. Yes,
That's nice.
yes, I'm looking
Okay.
forward to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, listen, Pamela, that I mean, I had never interviewed anyone that healed their childhood trauma by writing about it. Everybody talks about silence because that's the word, right? Things that happen to you, especially sexual abuse, you're silent about it, right? So you don't want to tell. But yeah, I guess once you start telling, and you start doing interviews, first you write the book and then you start doing interviews, so you got to talk about it. All of that is healing, but you got there before you started talking about your book.
Right.
Writing your book was your healing journey. And I think that's the first time I've actually heard that. So
Wow.
that's very beautiful.
Yes.
That's very beautiful. So, hey, if I want to leave you guys with anything, is that Pamela's story reminds us that healing doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. Even the tangled threads that have purpose in the hands of the master weaver. Because, yes, the master weaver weaves all these different things. And as the Bible says, is not if trouble comes, but when trouble comes. So you got to expect it. You got to expect trouble. You got to expect challenges, right? Some people face more than some, but it is the master weaver. Again, it's the first time I've heard anybody, use that title or tag, but it's beautiful title because it's a tapestry. It's a quilt,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So if this episode spoke to you, take a moment to reflect on your own tapestry. And remember, your story isn't over yet. You can find um, uh, To Touch One's Heart, Part 1, wherever books are sold. She said it's on Amazon, it's in Barnes and Nobles. And yeah, pick up a copy of Pamela's book. And if this episode that she's talking about, challenges with her parents, challenges with women, challenges with men, challenges with her relationships, her husband that didn't want her to see her kids. I'm pretty sure that you can find something in her story that you can use to encourage another woman. So definitely share this episode with someone who needs hope today. So Pamela, it was great talking to you. So as we wrap up, do you have any last words that you need to leave with the listeners?
Um, no, but I do encourage people to renew their minds and to allow that process to happen and to think about writing their story, no matter how long it may be or short it may be, it's still a story
Yes.
and it makes a difference. We make a difference.
Yes.
You know, we have value. We have value. When we
Oh, yeah.
tell our stories,
Yes.
it does bring value to others.
Yes, it does. It does.
And it does bind us together in relationships with one another because we can share those moments.
Yes.
And so many people are alone in those memories.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just a good thing to be able to say, yeah, that one thing in your book I related to and I cried.
Yes.
And that to me is worth it all.
Yes, it is. It is. It's beautiful. Well said. Well said. Right. Connection, touching other people's life. That's what the book is called. To Touch One Heart, Part 1. So yeah, we want to touch your heart with Pamela's story. So listen, guys, thanks again for tuning in to this episode of Transforming Your Mind, Transforming Your Life. We were talking to author Pamela Benner. Her book is called To Touch One Heart, Part 1. Pick up a copy, support her, be inspired by her story. And thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Pamela, for being on the show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
You're very welcome. Until next time, namaste.